What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back here with my Week 1 running back rankings, half-point PPR. If you guys are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Posting running back league winners still. Wide receiver league winners is already out. Values are out. Busts coming very soon. All that content, rankings every single week to keep your roster up to date and winning. If you want to win that fantasy championship, hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below. Any start, sits, anything like that, I'll respond to all comments. So please do. It helps out the algorithm. I will respond to you guys. Hit that like button as well. Really helps me out. All right, let's talk running back rankings. So number one, I've got Christian McCaffrey against Pittsburgh. He's involved in the passing game. He's involved greatly on the ground, and they've got a great rushing attack in San Francisco. No-brainer, these first few players. Austin Ekeler against Miami, same situation, using the passing game, using the ground. Great touchdown upside. Number three, Tony Pollard. He is going to be heavily utilized, especially at the beginning of the season. I am not afraid of this matchup with the Giants. I'm still rolling him out there. He's an explosive player who can make his whole week on one play. Number four, Bijan Robinson. I think he's going to hit the ground running. I will play him against Carolina with confidence. Five, Nick Chubb against Cincinnati. Chubb's just a no-brainer. You're going to play him each and every week, and he is an absolute stud. Six, Nick Henry against New Orleans. This is a little bit of a tougher matchup. They have a good defense typically, and the Tennessee offensive line isn't as good as it was in years past, but with the volume Derrick Henry gets and the type of player he is, especially at the beginning of the season, you're rolling him out there. Not that he is worse or better at the beginning than the end, but he is an older back. Number seven, Josh Jacobs. This one obviously is tentative, but there's been reports that he is likely to come back to camp, so I am taking him and playing him against Denver, even in a tough matchup. They've got a good defense, but again, he just gets so much volume, and he is a good back. He's reportedly been in pretty good shape this offseason, hasn't been had to be rehabbing from an injury or anything like that for the first time in a while, so I still have confidence in Josh Jacobs. 8, Saquon Barkley. Tough matchup for him against Dallas, but he's just one of those guys who's going to get a lot of volume on the ground, catch passes as well. 9, Kenneth Walker, a guy who I think hits the ground running, especially in this matchup against the Rams. I'm not afraid of them defensively this season until proven otherwise. And Kenneth Walker, I think, will get the featured work, especially at the beginning of the season. He's a guy who can bust those long plays and really add a massive touchdown on to his week. Number 9, another one, Jonathan Taylor against Jacksonville. This is assuming, obviously, Jonathan Taylor shows up and plays for the Indianapolis Colts, which I think are both major question marks at this point. But it is a good matchup if he is able to suit up, but we will see. Okay, so number 11, I have Aaron Jones against Chicago. I think they're going to use him a lot, especially at the beginning of the season with this transition to Jordan Love, have some drawn-up plays for him, and that Chicago defense is not exactly menacing. Travis Etienne Jr. against Indy, I like him in this matchup. I think he'll get a lot of work, and I think they'll win this game. 13, I have Miles Sanders against Atlanta. Good matchup for him. I think Sanders will get a ton of work in that offense. 14, Joe Mixon against Cleveland. Slightly better defense, obviously, for Cleveland. They're looking really good up front this season. But Joe Mixon should get a great chance of scoring a touchdown at any point, really. Great offense. He catches a ton of passes as well. 15, James Conner against Washington. They've got a good defense, but James Conner is going to be the guy there. Jahmyr Gibbs against Kansas City. I'm really not afraid of this matchup, but really at all for Jahmyr Gibbs. If anything, I feel like game script-wise it could be a positive because I think he could catch a lot of passes in the second half of that football game. I'm playing Jahmyr Gibbs with full confidence in week 1. Like I said, the situation I think is just nice. And when you get drafted 12 overall, you're going to be a part of offensive game plans moving forward. 17, Ramondre Stevenson against Philly. Really like Ramondre this year, but I just think the Philly matchup is not ideal. But again, there's still a chance, like I said, with New England and Philly, that Ramondre is just catching 6 passes in the second half of that football game and ends up with a really solid finish for that week. 18, I have J.K. Dobbins against Houston. Good matchup for him. I could see him getting some work in the second half of that football game. 19, Jamal Williams against Tennessee. He's going to be the starter in New Orleans. I like that matchup against the Titans. I'm rolling him out there with confidence. He's a good pass catcher as well. I don't know if they'll use him a ton in that role, but I imagine he'll catch a few passes. But they also have Kendre Miller there as well. 20, Khalil Herbert against Green Bay. Really like Herbert this year. think he's going to have a massive season, and I don't mind. I think the Green Bay defense should be pretty solid this year, but they've always been somewhat susceptible to the run game. So I'm starting Khalil Herbert this week with confidence. 21, Alexander Madison against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's got a pretty good defense, I think, still, and their front seven is pretty solid. They've got good linebackers. They've got Vita Vea. They've got some big guys up front, and they prioritize stopping the run. So it could be a tougher week for Alexander Madison on the ground, although he should still receive a lot of volume. 22, Cam Akers against Seattle. Seattle's defense, they added Wagner back. But I still think Cam Akers, if he's featured the way he was at the end of last season, should be really good for fantasy. 23, Rachaad White against Minnesota. He should just soak up a ton of targets, soak up a lot of the rushing attempts, really just get a lion's share of the work there. Minnesota's not a bad matchup either. I think people are just uninspired by this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, but they are an NFL team. They're going to score points, and Rachaad White looks to be the leader on the ground by a considerable margin. 24, Najee Harris against San Francisco. I think Najee would be a lot higher. This is just a really tough matchup, and I don't know how much work he's going to get in through the passing game. I feel like that's somewhat yet to be seen with the whole Kenny Pickett experience, but we will find that out early on this season. But yeah, I'm not super high on Najee for this week, but I think weeks moving forward he'll be ranked much higher. It's really just matchup based. 25, Isaiah Pacheco against Detroit. He could get some run in the second half of this game. Obviously, you're hoping he punches in a touchdown. Detroit's a pretty good matchup, though, for your running back. They obviously drafted Jack Campbell, a first-round linebacker. That should help them start the run a little bit, but still not going to be a great defensive unit, in my opinion. 26, Dameon Pierce against Baltimore. Tougher matchup, but I think he'll be the featured back on that offense the entire year. 27, Raheem Mostert. This one's a little bit interesting. You're kind of hedging your bets. I have Mostert right now being the lead guy just because I've heard some reports about that, but who knows? I feel like talent-wise, and once they got Jeff Wilson last year, they were using him, but was that because Mostert wasn't fresh? There's a lot to be seen in that backfield, but what I do think is that whoever it is will be valuable for fantasy. The Chargers have that run funnel. He should have a good game. I would be trying to play Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson, taking a shot at one of those guys in daily or my flex in my fantasy football leagues. 28, Javonte Williams against Las Vegas. I don't know if he'll be the lead week 1, but Vegas is a good enough matchup for me to risk it and roll him out there in flex play, or if I've got a weak RB2. 29, Brian Robinson against Arizona. I think that Washington wins this football game, although who knows? But the reason I think that Brian Robinson has a solid week is just that, yeah, they win that game. He gets, 17, 18 carries, something like that on the ground, and can turn that into something positive. Dalvin Cook is playing Buffalo. He will be the featured back there early on in the season with Breece Hall coming back from that injury, I believe. And I think they'll both be used, but I think they'll lead on Dalvin Cook more early. Buffalo's not a great matchup, so that's why he's a little bit farther down on this list. 31, David Montgomery. Montgomery is playing Kansas City. That's the only reason I think he's this far down the list this year. So I'm just worried about in the second half, is he going to be the guy catching the pass out there? Are they going to get that touchdown opportunity in the goal line for him? Because I think if he scores a touchdown, obviously you're going to be very happy with him. But I'm just worried about the opportunities might shrink in that second half for him. But I think that the Lions should be able to put up some points in Kansas City, so I'd be optimistic. 32, James Cook against the Jets. He's looked good all training camp. One explosive play can make his entire week. And I do expect him to be used through the passing game a little bit more in this type of matchup with how good their corners are. 33, Samaje Perine against Vegas. This is similar to the Javonte thing. I think they will both get work, and I think that's a good matchup for both of them. And they can both be very productive for fantasy. 34, Jeff Wilson Jr. playing the Chargers with that run funnel. See Raheem Mostert when I was talking about him earlier. 35, Antonio Gibson against Arizona. I think he'll be using the passing game and just overall more than he was in previous seasons. So I think that's exciting for his upside. Kenneth Gainwell, I think he'll be the featured back in that committee for Philadelphia, although I do think it'll be a lot of guys and just pretty spread out. And obviously they have Jalen Hurts around the goal line, so limits upside for sure. And New England isn't a great matchup, but I do think Kenneth Gainwell will lead the way in that backfield. If you guys have made it to this point in the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to stick around and win your fantasy championships. And if you have any questions or comments, any start sits, leave them in the comment section down below, and I will respond. This has been Fantasy Joe. Thank you guys for watching.